Hi everyone, in today's video I'm going to call out the 5 of the new 10th edition rules which I think have a big impact on Astra Militarum in 10th edition. As you know, GW have released for free the full core rules which is available in the link below, and this is super cool as it allows anybody to dive straight into the new edition of 40k. Now what we don't of course yet know is unit point costs or the wider army rules beyond what GW have showcased in their army showcases. At the time of writing today, I've also seen that there are more datasheets available out there, but for this video I'll focus mostly on what has been shared by GW. We do know for Astra Militarum that Born Soldiers will continue, and things like 20-man squads of infantry squads will definitely be a thing in the new edition. So these 5 focus areas are still relatively subjective, but hopefully logical in the overall scheme of things. Right, first up is transports. These are getting some serious change, with all transports now allowing a unit to disembark before the transport moves or after it has moved as well. If they get it after the transport has moved, the unit can't move or charge, but this introduces a lot of movement flexibility into the game, with for example a Chimera moving 12 inches, an infantry squad disembarking 3 inches, so an effective move of 15 inches. Add in on the top whatever mechanized orders will be, and you've got even more movement there. We know that some transports will be able to advance and debus a unit inside without Taurucs having this such ability. This could be great, whizzing infantry squads around the tabletop, move blocking your opponent, or mucking up the board and getting enough objective control 2 Valucadian shock troops onto an objective to contest it. Also, the way a transport is destroyed and what happens to the units inside has changed. You still roll a d6 for each model inside, and on a 1 they suffer a single mortal wound. Now for a 1 wound guardsman this means nothing, but for multi-wound models like Bolgrams this could be great, as you'd be simply partially damaging 1 model versus completely losing 1 outright. It must be said, however, that the unit will be battle shocked when they fall out of the vehicle, and this means objective control value is 0, so holding objectives is going to be a significant trade-off. Also of note is that the 9th edition stratagem of needing to spend CP to emergency disembark 6 inches is now baked into the rule for free, but taking a mortal wound on a dice roll of a 1 to 3 or a 50% chance, which is actually pretty terrible. However, again, a bit of a trade-off. Gone are the days of ramming a Chimera with an infantry squad into your opponent's face, having the transport destroyed and 10 OPSEC bodies piling out and stealing your opponent's objective. The fact the unit is battle shocked means this can't be done. Now a discussion point is the new Insane Bravery stratagem, which allows a battle shock test to be passed. However, in this instance, given that the unit that falls out of the vehicle has already gone into battle shock, will the stratagem actually work? Let me know what you think about this one. So from all of that, I reckon Mechanized Guard could be a definite thing in the new edition, with Chimeras and Tauruxes flying infantry squads and Bolgram blobs around the tabletop, move blocking and simply gumming up your opponent's play. Final thing on transports is that we know the Chimera has the firing deck 2 rule, allowing 2 blocks to shoot out of the top of it, so combined with the lasgun array, turret and front sponson weapons, you could have a decent light show going on. Also, we know that the embarked unit will actually benefit now from any buffs the transport receives. So the mechanized orders could affect the 2 blokes shooting at the top of the hatch, which is definitely radical. Right, next is the evolution of Big Guns Never Tire rule. Now, a vehicle or monster can shoot and be shot at whilst in engagement range of an enemy unit. Blast weapons still can't be fired into combat, which aligns to what it was in 9th edition, and the shooting unit will receive a -1 to hit, but this is great for vehicle heavy army lists like Astra Militarum. This basically means the play style from the 9th edition codex can be carried over, putting Limb and Russes into areas of board control with good fire lanes and not caring if you're tagged and wrapped in melee. The -1 to hit could be troubling, as we're probably going to find ourselves moving back to a ballistic skill of 4+ in Limb and Russes. However, the new heavy weapon rule will actually mitigate this. The heavy weapon ability rule now grants a bonus +1 to hit if the shooting unit remains stationary, so putting the -1 to hit back to a normal ballistic skill of 4+, which is great. A note of caution, however, is that on the previewed Baneblade datasheet, none of its weapons, nor the Lemon Rust Battle Cannon datasheet that was also shared, actually had the heavy keyword in them, whilst the Volcano Cannon does actually have it as well. But as I said, perhaps not all Lemon Rust weapons will actually have this, but of course we're going to have to see further datasheets to make a conclusion. Linked to the heavy ability rule is indirect fire. Indirect weapons will now be permanently nerfed with a -1 to hit if they can't see the target, and the target also gets the benefits of cover. On the face of this, looks like an effective way to avoid the Armageddon that was certain parts of 9th edition with indirect fire going everywhere. However, the heavy weapon ability actually cancels this out completely. Given most indirect fire weapon units like mortars, manticores and basilisks spend the entire game parked behind cover and not moving or game, will be hitting on 4s anyway. Of course, maybe our indirect fire weapons may not get the heavy weapon ability. However, it would be weird given that the showcased Adeptus Sororitas Exorcist indirect weapons both have got the heavy and indirect rule. So it would be strange if our weapons didn't get it. Now, I have seen other datasheets out there which definitely confirms that the mortar in the heavy weapon team, it contains both the heavy and indirect keyword, and that's definitely a discussion area for another video. Okay, now a very minor one is the new scout rule being essentially a pre-game move. What's interesting here is that the transport unit that the unit is in can also make the pre-game move, which could set up some interesting scenarios. From an Astra Militarum point of view, perhaps only Ratlings or Gaunt's Ghost will have this rule, and it could be a really neat way to eke out even more movement before the game even begins. Overlay that with the new transport rules I spoke about earlier, and you definitely get some cool scenarios. Plus, of course, it does also give you an enhanced degree of protection for your scout units. Okay, now the last one, and perhaps the biggest one, which will affect not just Astra Militarum but all armies. And that is the reduced way to squeeze out free movement from the charge phase, pile in and consolidation. A big difference here is that when charging in, the final point of the paragraph here shows you that each model must move within base-to-base contact of the target unit if possible. This now avoids a cunning opponent from stringing out models to different parts of the board by conga lining their charging unit into the target unit, having only some models within engagement range. I'm far from a practiced veteran of the charge phase, but this will definitely go to reducing free movement players can eke out of the charging phase. The same has been done to the pile-in, requiring base-to-base contact to be attempted, and also which models can actually fight. Previously, models that could fight were those within half an inch of those models within half an inch of an enemy unit, so this is definitely going to be a bit of a smaller restriction. Lastly, a consolidation move also requires the unit to either remain within engagement range of an enemy unit, or if not possible, move towards the closest objective marker. This last piece is a new element to 10th edition, and of course, depending on where the fight is happening, could either have the fighting unit moving closer or further away to other units in the opponent's army list. Again, I'm not a connoisseur of the charge or fight phase, but this definitely feels like it's going to be restrictive than in 9th edition. And very lastly, related to this, is a heroic intervention rule. This is now a 2 CP stratagem, and this can be done by any non-vehicle unit within 6 inches of an enemy unit. Characters will no longer have this baked in, which is a bit of a downgrade for some super stabby characters. However, being able to do this with any infantry style unit is huge. This means obviously a ton of other units have got a bit of a counterplay threat, and a 6-inch threat range is clearly a lot bigger than a 3-inch threat range. For shooter armies, both of these points are clearly very interesting, and with the reduced movement coming out of the charge, pile-in and consolidation movements, it does mean your opponent's got more time before they can hit our gun line. So yep, a quick take on 5 elements that I think will have an impact on Astra Militarum. As I said, this is based mostly on the core rules themselves, but we'll need to see other data sheets and wider rules and stratagems before we can get a full sense of what's going to definitely have most impact. I do know, as I said at the beginning of the video, that some other datasheets have come out on the internet, as you can see here, and I definitely will be doing another video as we look at those ones that have come out. So yep, what do you think of the 10th edition rules? Let me know in the comments. And what do you think is going to have most impact on Astra Militarum from the knowledge we have so far? But yep, if you enjoyed this video and want to support me, you can do so with a like, comment, or by subscribing, joining my Patreon platoon, or simply watching any of my other YouTube videos. A massive thanks to my current supporters. So get your bayonet sharp, let's go oiled. Faith for the Emperor strong. Patreon platoon, sound off. Tank Commander Glenn. Tank Commander Watchdog Van Etten. Tank Commander Mitchell. Colour Sergeant DuPont. Sergeants Adal, the Colonel Merrill. Veteran Gibson, Hall, Lundeen. Guardsman Beard, Coquelin, Flint, Hills, Malik, Nitton, Nguyen, Smith, Tom, Tompkin. Conscript England, Gilliam, Goodwin.